Tonight, enough war, welcome to peace. The declaration from the Egyptian president as world leaders sign a historic agreement. That's after one by one, Hamas released 20 hostages to be reunited with their families. Hundreds of Palestinian prisoners and detainees were also freed and greeted by cheering crowds.
This took 3,000 years to get to this point. Can you believe it? And it's going to hold up, too. It's going to hold up.
The US president heralded this moment as the start of a golden age for the Middle East. From dealmaker to peacemaker now, Donald Trump says phase 2 of his plan has already begun. But will it be a peace that lasts? That's all coming up on The World with me, Yalda Hakim. Good evening from Tel Aviv, where today Donald Trump declared that the war in Gaza is over. In many ways, he's right. The bombings have ended. Hundreds of lorries of aid are being driven across the border each day. Crowds in Tel Aviv cheered as 20 Israeli hostages were released. And there were scenes of celebration in Khan Yunis and the West Bank too, as nearly 2,000 Palestinian prisoners and detainees were freed. This was the US president's victory tour. He received at least 20 standing ovations in the Knesset here. And he repeatedly reminded us that he's achieved what no one thought was possible.
Now at last, not only for Israelis, but also for Palestinians and for many others, the long and painful nightmare is finally over.
Well, a few hours later in Egypt, the guest of honor became the host. He received world leaders one by one with a handshake, and he did most of the talking.
A new and beautiful day is rising, and now the rebuilding begins. I want to express my tremendous gratitude to the Arab and Muslim nations who helped make this incredible breakthrough possible.
But as Air Force One left the region this evening after a presidential whistle-stop tour, it's only now that the hardest work of all begins. Those Arab and Muslim nations are being left to sort out the messier details on disarmament by Hamas and withdrawal by Israel, and crucially, on funding the reconstruction of Gaza. We'll assess what happens in phase 2 of this plan on the programme tonight. Let's get started with our first report from our International Affairs editor, Dominique Waghorn.
After 2 years and an agonising final few hours, signs of movement. Filmed by our team inside Gaza, Red Cross vehicles snaking through its devastated hellscape with hostages on board. Then into Israel. The roads lined with crowds cheering their return. The 20 hostages, all of them men, were then flown from southern Israel by helicopter. Their ordeal has traumatized an entire nation. Their release freeing Israelis from that torment. After waiting for so long, the agony is over. For those who were kidnapped and their families who feared this moment would never come. Guy Gilboa Dalal was abducted at the Nova Music Festival on October the 7th, reunited today with his family after so long, all of them overwhelmed with joy. And then with his childhood friend who was kidnapped with him that day. Eviatar David and he were abducted, held together, but then separated by their captors. They are reunited now. Etan Moore was also kidnapped at the music festival, hugged for the first time in 2 years today by his parents. "You are alive with 2 arms and 2 legs," says his father. The day has felt like several compressed into one, because as the hostages were being freed, the man responsible for their release was coming into land. Other presidents might have waited to see how their diplomacy would work out. Not Donald Trump, here undoubtedly to bask in the glory, but also keep up the momentum for a deal he believes could transform the region. We have seen other American presidents lauded in Israel's Knesset, but never quite like this. This was the first of what would be at least 20 standing ovations.
Donald Trump is the greatest friend that the state of Israel has ever had in the White House.
President Trump is thought to have forced Israel's Prime Minister to agree to this deal. Benjamin Netanyahu, though, told the Knesset the war is over.
The last 2 years have been a time of war. The coming years will hopefully be a time for peace.
Then the president spoke for over an hour.
Never forget and never again.
Stopped repeatedly with applause. And once by protest from Israeli Arab and far-left politicians. Donald Trump was emphatic. This is the start, he says, of a new dawn.
This long and difficult war has now ended. You know, some people say 3,000 years, some people say 500 years, whatever it is. It's the granddaddy of them all. And in an unprecedented achievement, virtually the entire region has endorsed the plan that Gaza will be immediately demilitarized, that Hamas will be disarmed, and Israel's security will no longer be threatened in any way, shape, or form.
On the West Bank, they were welcoming home their captives, more than 250 long-term prisoners released from Israel's jails. Another 1,700 who'd been detained in Gaza during this war allowed home too. There was enormous relief among the free prisoners our team in Gaza spoke to.
It feels like I've been born again, like we've come back to life after going through hell. Prison was hell. I swear it's as if God has given me a new life. For those 19 months we were locked away, I wasn't truly living. It's a place where your dignity gets erased.
We're so happy. I'm over the moon to be seeing my family and all of you. We were treated really badly in prison, but we are all well. Thank God, and we're all happy to see you.
There are no state-of-the-art hospitals to receive the Gazans, and their homes have been destroyed. The full scale of the destruction in Gaza is becoming clearer, as is the urgent need for aid to flood in to help them. It has been an extraordinary day, like few others in the Middle East, of enormous emotion and high drama. But this, in a sense, is the easy bit if the diplomacy led by Donald Trump is to fulfil the promise of his rhetoric today. There needs to be immediate progress towards putting a security force into Gaza and an interim government as soon as possible. There was little apparent sense of urgency in Sharm el-Sheikh, where much of the time was used up filming each leader meeting the US president one by one. Then the leaders signed a document whose content still isn't known. Donald Trump, though, insisting the day would benefit people across the region.
With the historic agreement we've just signed, those prayers of millions have finally been answered.
Only the first phase of Trump's deal has been implemented, a 3-day ceasefire and exchange of captives. And yet the US president is already hailing a new era of peace in the Middle East. He must now start the work of making that come true. Dominic Waghorn, Sky News, Jerusalem.
And we'll be speaking to Dominic in a moment. But here in Hostages Square, it's been a day of enormous emotion. In fact, it's been 738 days of enormous emotion. That's the number of days since the October 7 attack. It's been here that families and loved ones gathered and waited every day in the hope of one day being reunited with those taken. Today, those reunions happened. All 20 living hostages were returned. Our international correspondent Alex Rossi reports.
This is the moment Matan Zangaoka was reunited with his mother. You are my life, my champion, my hero, she says. For more than 2 years, her son's been held by Hamas, but the living hell of his captivity is now finally over. And as the hostages were reunited, the images were beamed into Hostages Square. The mood, one of sheer elation.
For me, it's everything. It's human being life, and they are coming back.
Seeing specifically Alon, who is the son of my arts teacher, return, it's like this big relief.
For the families of hostages who'd already been released, this day has brought some resolution.
For my grandma, it was impossible. Every day she woke up in the tunnel, every poster she saw, she went back there. Now she's released. So this release is not 20 hostages only. It's a release of all live hostages came back from Gaza.
Since October the 7th, the square has been a site of weekly demonstration. Chants of frustration are now turning into songs of celebration. And tears that once fell in despair are now tears of relief.
They've been coming to Hostages Square for the last 2 years to campaign and pressure the government, and they can't believe this moment has finally come. The mood here is one of optimism, relief and joy. And they credit one man, really, with getting the deal done, and that's the American president, Donald J. Trump.
When helicopters pass overhead, ferrying freed captives to nearby hospitals, the crowd erupts again and again, looking upwards to the sky. The sense of catharsis here is palpable. After a nightmare 2 years, a chance for the healing process of a nation to begin.
And we say thanks to the US for their involvement and their huge push to move it, because our government didn't seem to care much about it.
There's pain, and there's grief, and there's sense of big relief. And the most intense feeling is that we're really all connected. It's like a part of me came home.
Now that the living hostages are home, attention turns to those who did not survive. Officials say repatriating remains will take time. And even amidst the celebrations here, for some families, closure still remains heartbreakingly out of reach. Alex Rossi, Sky News, Tel Aviv.
Well, across the border in the West Bank and Gaza, there were scenes of jubilation. As part of the deal, more than 1,900 Palestinian prisoners were released, among them men, women and children, crowds cheering as the buses arrived home. Middle East correspondent Adam Parsons has the story.
Inside this convoy, prisoners released by Israel in exchange for their hostages. Some of these people have been behind bars for decades. The police were under orders to try to keep things low-key. But here in Ramallah, the sense of relief was contagious.
The Israelis insist that many of these prisoners are terrorists, but here the Palestinians consider them a blend of freedom fighters and political prisoners, many of whom have been held in jails for years without trial. And now, amidst this chaos and euphoria, they are being greeted as heroes.
There were tears and there was defiance. This man said he'd been beaten in the hours before his release.
My message to the world is to come together and help the Palestinian people, to stop massacres. I wish peace on everyone. My last moment in prison were most painful of my life.
Delight for some, dismay for others, who suffered a cruel disappointment. Khadir, a police officer, has just been told that her brother had not been released as promised. Instead of being brought here, he was sent to Gaza, and he'll then be deported. Khadir's sister, Abir, was here too, along with their cousin, stunned at the news.
We got a call from my cousin last night and a written warning taped on our door saying we weren't allowed to celebrate. At midnight, they moved him south and then to Gaza, all without our knowledge. We came to see him, but we were shocked when he wasn't on the bus. It's part of their playbook, psychological terror, playing with our emotions and those of the prisoners.
The tendrils and echoes of captivity seep deep into the West Bank. In the crowd, we meet Aman Nafa, speaking to her husband, Nael. He was initially convicted of murder, but then spent 45 years in prison, more than any other Palestinian, and was deported to Turkey earlier this year. To many, he's a hero. A man doubts Israel wants peace.
I know that Netanyahu, he did this and he didn't want to do it. And Netanyahu himself, he just wants the war to continue until he finished Palestine and everywhere, not just in Gaza, even in the West Bank.
What are your emotions when you see the attention of the world at these Israeli hostages?
Double standards, But I believe the people themselves, they know what is happening in Palestine. This is important for us.
And her skepticism is not unique.
Israel think that they could save their security only by more blood and more kill of our people.
So it feels like what you're saying is there's going to be more attacks, more battles, more deaths.
Sure, if there is no political solution, this conflict will continue to be bloodshed conflict.
It is that fear of the future that drives anxiety into the fabric of the West Bank, where the spectre of violence always looms. Adam Parsons, Sky News, Ramallah.
Well, Hamas was today accused of failing to meet its commitments after they handed over only 4 bodies of dead hostages to Israel. Let's bring in my next guest, Gil Dickman, whose cousin Carmel Gat was murdered by Hamas in September 2024. It's good to see you again, Gil. We've been talking a lot over the course of the last 2 years, and then, of course, Carmel was murdered and then her body was returned. Just tell me how you feel today knowing that those 20 hostages made it back.
It's such a joyful moment for me personally and for the people of Israel. You saw people smiling here today like never before in the last 2 years. Finally, these 20 hostages who were there for such a long time, for 738 days, are finally home, and it's one of the happiest days I can remember in my life, because in last deals we had people coming back and some of the people were left behind. Now finally we can say all living hostages are finally home. No one will be starving to death in Gaza tonight. No hostage will be in life risk. And after my cousin was murdered in the late August 2024, we promised to make sure that not even one hostage will be murdered in captivity. And I'm glad to say that we've made it. They all made it back alive. And that's why I'm so glad and I'm so happy. And you can see me smiling and all the people smiling because of this. And I'm also sad that she didn't make it. She was supposed to be here. She was supposed to be released on the 8th day of the November ceasefire. And many times after that, there were so many opportunities to get her back, and they were missed by our government. Now, finally, the other hostages are here, and there's some kind of correction for us.
Because, of course, there are still 28 of those deceased whose bodies the Israeli government, their families are waiting for. 4 bodies were returned today. I think we can show our viewers that convoy with the bodies in it. And we're just going to pull that up on our screen in a moment. And the Israeli government felt that wasn't part of the deal. They expected more of the bodies. Hamas is saying it's going to take time. So for many, while this is a moment of joy, this could also go on for many weeks now.
Yeah, and that's why I still have the number on my shirt, because we were expecting 28 hostages or remains of hostages, because their families must have, a closure for them, to make sure to know that they will never have them back alive, to have a proper burial. And we expected Hamas to give 28 hostages. They only gave 4, and they're saying it's going to take time. It's very hard for us to trust Hamas. And what we are afraid is that they're going to keep some of the remains of the hostages and then, find them, quote unquote, on a later date. And that's what we can't have. We want all the remains of the hostages now. We understand that there might be 1 or 2 that it's going to be hard to locate, but you can't have 24 of them that they're still looking for. They must act quickly. That's the deal, and I totally understand why the Israeli government is insisting upon that.
Tell us why Carmel's body was returned when it was at the time in September of 2024, just a few weeks after she was killed.
Yeah, it was a tragedy. She was actually killed 2 days before her body was found and retrieved. She was held in a tunnel in Rafah, with 5 other hostages. They were in a very small tunnel together and horrible conditions, but what killed them was that the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, were approaching. Her captors thought that they were coming to release the hostages, so they executed them. They shot them to death and ran away. And we were speaking about this so many times, telling and warning that if you try to pressure too much the captors of Hamas, hostages will be killed and executed. And that's exactly what happened to my cousin. And that's why we were so vocal about this, to say, don't use too much military pressure. You're going to regret this. This war was supposed to bring back the hostages. And in fact, 43 hostages who were kidnapped alive were either murdered or killed in captivity and will never, never come back. And that's why we were so focused on getting a deal that'll end this war and get hostages back. This is actually what most of the people of Israel have wanted for a very long time. And when Donald Trump came with that plan, 83% of Netanyahu's voters said, yes, we're agreeing to this plan. So Trump said, okay. Even though Netanyahu wants to prolong this war for political purposes, even though some will say, and I will say, that he was willing to sacrifice hostages so more hostages will be killed or murdered in captivity, Trump said enough is enough. The deal was signed and the hostages came home.
Gil, do you feel this is the end now, even if you get those bodies back? Or, do you think this is part of a new phase?
I feel it depends on how we as Israeli people in the world decide to look at this. The way I feel today is as if it's the beginning of a new era. The war is over. And Trump said it again and again and again. People are smiling and they're happy not only because 20 hostages came back alive, but because their loved ones are no longer now in Gaza risking their lives. Innocent people aren't dying either in Gaza or in Israel. That's such a good news. And we have to take this amazing vision of, it sounds like a fantasy, but it's possible, of peace here, and try to see how we build it. And I believe we as Israelis and the Palestinians, we deserve the leadership that not only knows how to fight and how to prolong wars, but also how to end wars and how to make peace between the two peoples. And it is possible. If you told me 2 weeks ago, you're going to have a deal, the war is going to be over, and 20 hostages are going to come back, and all the hostages are going to come back, I'd say, no way, it's not possible. But here, we're standing here today, and this is the reality. And they're here. And if it's possible, if we made it, and if we made it to get all the hostages back, I think we can actually achieve peace. It's a question of leadership.
Gil, it's been really good to talk to you over the past 2 years.
Thank you.
Also, thank you so much again for joining us.
Thank you, Yalda.
Well, you're watching The World, still to come on the programme, confronting the president. Hear from the man who heckled Donald Trump at the Knesset.
I'm Dominic Waghorn, Sky's International Affairs Editor, covering a world that seems to be unravelling.
It's not his country, it's ours.
Sky News, the full story first, free wherever you get your news. It's half an hour now past the deadline that Hamas issued, and we've now seen a third barrage of rockets coming in.
We arrive, a secret hospital hidden in the Myanmar jungle, treating the victims of this bloody war. This is Myanmar today. Its military rulers don't want the world to see, but we have.
I fight for my own future. I fight for my generation's futures.
This is an actual crime.
They don't care for that.
Myanmar army is only a couple of kilometers away. So this is a major humanitarian disaster.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story. I'm ready. Are you? Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
Welcome back to The World, live here from Tel Aviv on this historic day. The clear tone today has been one of celebration and hope from both families and world leaders, but it hasn't been without its moments of tension either. One of those was during Donald Trump's speech at the Knesset, where he was interrupted by two members who shouted terrorist at the president. Just take a look.
Everybody loves Steve, and they respect him, and they somehow can relate to him. I've known him for many years, and I've seen it over and over again.
להוציא את חבר הכנסת הזה, להוציא אותו מהאולם, להוציא אותו מיד, החוצה, החוצה, החוצה. להוציא גם את חבר הכנסת כסיף, להוציא את חבר הכנסת כסיף מהאולם, להוציא אותו מיד. Sorry for that, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Please.
That was very efficient.
Ayman Odeh and Ofer Kassif, both from the Hadash political party, being removed there. They also held up signs that read, "Recognize Palestine and genocide." Mr. Kassif spoke with my colleague Mark Austin a little earlier about why he did it. Have a listen.
Now, so many people in Israel, and apparently outside of Israel too, although to a much lesser extent, refer to Trump as if he was the savior. He is not the savior. He's part and parcel, a total complicit in the genocide that Israel carried out for almost 2 years, for about 2 years, because he actually gave the back, he actually supported, the government of Israel when Israel itself violated the agreement that was in place last March. He not only rhetorically, he said that Gaza is going to be cleansed. That's what he said. He said he was talking about a total relocation of the people of Gaza, but he also supported Israel by veto decisions in the Security Council of the United Nations, by sending arms. So he's responsible not only for the genocide that was carried out in Gaza since he came to office, but also is responsible for the sacrifice for the very same Israeli hostages that now people celebrate as if he saved them.
Ofer Kassif there. Well, let's bring in our International Affairs Editor, Dominic Waghorn, who joins me live from Jerusalem. And Dom, we were following events throughout the morning. There was a real sense that, Donald Trump's welcome would be greeted like a hero's welcome. Here in Hostage Square, they had many of his posters. And, of course, speaking at the Knesset, they gave all sorts of speeches honouring him and really praising him for this historic deal. But, of of course, it didn't go down totally according to plan. We saw the criticism there as well.
Yeah, I mean, he was greeted nationally, wasn't he, with praise and gratitude. We've seen American presidents come here and given warm welcomes in the past, of course, but I mean, I think no president has been given a welcome quite as rapturous and on this level as Donald Trump has. He was compared to Cyrus the Great Persian leader who freed the Jewish people out of Babylonian captivity back in ancient times. In the Knesset, he was given, I think, 22 standing ovations. And as you say, there was this moment when he was heckled and protesters interrupted his speech. And I think many people watching who regard Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu as guilty of carrying out a genocide in Gaza and also believe that Donald Trump is guilty of being complicit with that in the sense that he has supported the Israelis throughout much of its campaign. They will have watched this and thought this was a nauseating mutual appreciation fest. But whatever you make of Netanyahu and Donald Trump, I think you have to say, we have to take a step back and look at what has been achieved today and the progress that has been made. The hostages have been released. There is a ceasefire in place. Palestinian prisoners have been released. The war is over for now, and aid is going in to Gaza. The big question, of course, now is, can that be turned into something even bigger? Can the promise of Donald Trump's rhetoric, promising a new era for the Middle East, nothing less than that, can that be now delivered on by Donald Trump and by his allies who all met in Sharm el-Sheikh? It is a moment of opportunity, but that opportunity will obviously narrow with each day that passes if nothing more concrete can be achieved in Gaza.
Yeah, absolutely, Dom. I think that is the point here. I mean, Donald Trump himself said that phase 2 of this deal has already begun. But the concern is that the longer they take to, for example, put a security force together to govern Gaza, the greater the time before this power vacuum that exists at present would mean that frankly, Hamas could fill that vacuum.
Yeah, it's been a day of great catharsis, of course, for the Israelis, and we've talked about how it's a small country in the past, how everybody has relatives, young relatives in the military, like many of those who were taken October the 7th. Many have and young people who've gone to festivals like the one, the Nova Music Festival, where so many were abducted. And I think it's, it's also this sense that amongst many Jewish people, that the idea that no one's left behind is a sacred principle. But I think it's more than that, Yalda. I think, both you and I were here 2 years ago in the wake of October the 7th. We experienced and witnessed that profound sense of trauma and shock and bewilderment amongst Israelis that this could have happened to them. They never thought anything like this could happen. And I think the legacy of October the 7th has continued right up to now. In a sense, that trauma has continued for 2 years, for as long as those hostages were incarcerated. I think now there is an opportunity to get beyond that and to start a new beginning, as I think your guest a few minutes ago said. And I think there is a real sense here that there is a possibility for that. But I think that means a couple of things. It means, of course, first of all, there has to be a reckoning for what happened on October the 7th. The Israeli government's always said this isn't the time to talk about that. But it is now the time, and I think the Israeli Prime Minister will have to face a reckoning over his alleged part in it as well. But also, I think it raises questions now as to whether a new paradigm can be found. The bad old ways led to October the 7th. Is there a chance now to build a new future for the Middle East? And many people hope for that, and they also don't see the Israeli Prime Minister as part of that. So there's a sense of hope, a sense of new beginning, of possibility, but also I think a sense that that initiative, that sense of opportunity won't last forever.
Dom, thank you so much for all of your analysis there. This is The World. Next up on the programme, the simple but lingering question from today. What are the next steps on the road to a lasting peace?
I witnessed the complete destruction of a place linked to my childhood memories. This is insane. I'm Yusra Al-Bagher, Sky's Africa correspondent based in Johannesburg, South Africa. I felt awe when we saw the mountain gorillas in Rwanda.
We call him the king of the jungle. This is the alpha silverback.
Sky News, get the full story first.
Welcome back to the world on this extraordinary day in the Middle East, a day where we've seen the emotional reunion of families and loved ones. We've seen world leaders converge, and it seems hope truly has replaced heartache. But it's also only one day. What about tomorrow and the next day? Is what we can expect in the coming weeks. Once all hostages are returned, those Hamas members who commit to peaceful coexistence will be given amnesty, and those wishing to leave Gaza will be given a safe passage out. We've already seen hundreds of lorries of aid going into Gaza. Resources to rebuild infrastructure, hospitals and bakeries will also be provided, as well as equipment to remove rubble and open roads. Gaza will be governed by a temporary transitional committee involving qualified Palestinians and international experts, with oversight from a so-called board of peace chaired by Donald Trump. The Israeli Defense Forces have moved to the agreed initial withdrawal line, but still control 53% of the territory. Over time, the IDF will move closer to the border and continue to hand back territory until they fully withdraw.
The challenge now is tomorrow, an implementation, and therefore, yes, today is historic, but what happens tomorrow really matters. And that's why what I've been discussing with leaders all day is what part can we play? And we, the United Kingdom in particular, I think, can play a part in monitoring the ceasefire, but also decommissioning the capability of Hamas and their weaponry, drawing on our experience in Northern Ireland. So the question today has already moved to how do we implement, how do we make sure this moves forward? And it's really important that we keep that focus. We mustn't have any missteps now.
So Keir Starmer there, our political editor Beth Rigby, also tried to speak with Sir Tony Blair, whose role in this so-called Board of Peace has caused division. Just have a look.
Beth Rigby, Sky News, Mr. Blair. So what do you say to those who think you shouldn't sit on the board, sir?
A luck with a response, but our US correspondent Mark Stone has also been speaking to leaders in Sharm el-Sheikh, and he joins me now. Mark, good to see you again. You've been out and about trying to speak to some of those world leaders. Just talk us through the day's events.
Yeah, well, a day of... I was going to say a day of two halves, Yalda, but a day of multiple pieces, I think. Any individual moment, and there have been so many today, either up where you are or down here in Egypt, each on their own would be a significant news moment, and yet they came one after the other after the other. Donald Trump upended diplomatic norms. We know he does that, and he does it because he thinks it works. He sees, in his view, that people fail and have failed in the past. Certainly on the Middle East peace process, that much is true. And so he's not going to try failed things again. He's going to do it a different way, and so he has done. And I think it is certainly the case that, as Don was saying, there is no question that we are at phase one now, and that is a massive, massive success. But the challenges, as you outlined there so clearly, are huge. I mean, you listed them, absolutely huge. And then Keir Starmer kind of emphasised just how challenging these next few phases will be. The hard part has been done. The even harder part is to come. And I think it's also the case that I wonder just how disappointed the world leaders were that they didn't actually get a chance to voice publicly in a forum with President Trump their views on what happens next, be able to mould it their way. I think there was an expectation that would happen, but everything moved so slowly today, and everything was delayed so much because of what happened in Israel, the Knesset speech and all of that, that they didn't get a chance to do that. So they were kind of bystanders at their own summit. Kind of slightly weird, I thought. But afterwards, a couple of the leaders did speak to their own media and to us. I caught up with both the Dutch Prime Minister and the Italian Prime Minister. Have a listen.
Prime Minister, how hopeful are you today that Donald Trump will stay the course on this huge challenge?
I'm quite optimistic. But the main thing is that we are ready to give him
and the others all the end that is needed. Italy is there and is ready to be there for, this is a very big occasion, but we have to work on it. We have to work on it a lot. So you can count on Italy.
Do you think President Trump understands the challenge?
Yes, obviously.
I think he has a huge importance in, I mean, it's his deal. He put all the pressure on it. And of course, other countries helped, particularly Qatar, Turkey, and Egypt. But I think a lot of countries pushed on pressure, also Netanyahu. But I think Trump deserves all the credit he can.
And Mark, even though these world leaders didn't get a chance to really speak, they still came at incredibly short notice. And Donald Trump was very much in his element from arriving here in Israel and taking on the praise, the split screen that we saw between the hostages being released and arriving here back in Israel, and Donald Trump landing on Air Force One in Israel and then making his way to Sharm el-Sheikh. He very much has made it, you know, the world of Donald Trump, and we're all very much living in it. And of course, part of his motivation, on top of everything else, and he has taken the issue of the hostages incredibly seriously, but he's also made the idea of the Nobel Peace Prize very clear that he wants acknowledgement for what he's done.
Yeah, I think he's got multiple motivations. I mean, unquestionably, today was ego boosting for him. And he designed it like that because this is, yeah, maybe it's hosted on the face of it by Egypt, but it's not. This was the Trump show. And I don't necessarily mean that in a derogatory way. It was the Trump show, and he designed it to be the Trump show, and he enjoyed it. And he also got a huge success in getting the hostages out. And as he put it, the guns have fallen silent. That was his sort of big phrase in the Knesset in Israel. So all of lots of things can be true at the same time. It's hard to overstate the symbolism of what we saw unfold today, but it was about much, much more than symbolism. But it is also the case that the days ahead, the weeks ahead, the months ahead will be much more challenging indeed. But yes, he's motivated by his own ego. He's motivated by the prospect of a Nobel Peace Prize. Didn't get it this year. He couldn't. He wasn't nominated in time. Next year, genuinely, he could. If this holds, if he stays the course with this challenge, with the Middle East challenge, and maybe he gets some sort of breakthrough in Ukraine, and he's going to be meeting Zelensky again this coming Friday. He's going to leap us all from one massive issue to another by the end of the week. If he gets peace on both of those areas of the world, well, then maybe he does absolutely deserve it. But it's about more than that here as well, because it's also about the Abraham Accords. Remember that. That is the normalization between Israel and Gulf Arab countries and other Muslim majority countries around the world. A signature achievement, foreign policy achievement in his first presidency. It fell apart during Biden's term. It got even worse after October the 7th. He wants that back on track for multiple reasons, for reasons of trade, reasons of business, and reasons of coexistence and peace. And if he could do that, he will be very pleased indeed. And the only way he's going to be able to do that is to solve the Palestinian issue.
Yeah, Mark, absolutely. I wouldn't be surprised if in the coming months we're very seriously talking about normalization with the Saudis and the likes of the Indonesians as well. Mark, thank you so much for bringing us up to date. This is The World. Next up on the programme, while the bombings have stopped, for now at least, we look at the lasting impact this war will have with Save the Children UK.
I'm Martin Brunt, and I'm Sky's crime correspondent. My most memorable story was, and still is, the disappearance of Madeleine McCann.
Please, please do not hurt her. Please give our little girl back.
It's a case that has shocked, puzzled and divided the public like no other.
We aim to be the best and most trusted place for news. The story is really one of vast numbers of Unite the Kingdom supporters turning out and taking the police by surprise. I remember the grimmest case, the Soham murders of schoolgirls Holly and Jessica. I felt I can't undo what's happened, but I can help explain it.
Ian Huntley was arrested and charged within a fortnight of the murders.
Jihad al-Shami, the suspected Islamist terrorist who murdered Jews on UK soil. My biggest challenge was to persuade a jailed diamond thief to answer my letters. Martin Brunt, Sky News, at the Old Bailey.
Go ahead, back white jacket.
Deborah Haynes from Sky News. He called you Daddy earlier.
No, he did it very affectionate. Daddy, you're my daddy. Thank you.
Leicester is on its knees.
They've ripped the soul out of my factory and there's nothing left.
It is eerily quiet.
It's constantly on the brink of capacity.
There's overcrowding. It's not a new thing.
It's rough.
There's nothing to hide. Why aren't international journalists allowed in?
Are you worried about escalation?
Of course I'm worried about escalation, which is why my focus is on de-escalation.
The region, I think, is on edge because they are anticipating a retaliation.
Iran retaliates for the US attacks.
Founding principle of the alliance, that an attack on one is an attack on all.
Could Putin attack another NATO country within 5 years?
We arrive. A secret hospital hidden in the Myanmar jungle, treating the victims of this bloody war. This is Myanmar today. Its military rulers don't want the world to see, but we have.
I fight for my own future. I fight for my generation's futures.
This is an actual crime. They don't care for that. Myanmar army is only a couple of kilometers away. So this is a major humanitarian disaster.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story. I'm ready. Are you? Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
Welcome back to The World, live from Tel Aviv. While today is a day of celebration, the reality is that for many, the scars from this war, both physical and emotional, will last a lifetime. 20,000 children were killed in Gaza and many more injured. Well, Dan Stewart is from Save the Children UK and joins me now. Thank you so much, Dan, for joining us here on the programme. You have returned to London about a month ago, though. You were in Gaza. And some of these statistics, the numbers, when we talk about the deaths of children, the injuries, those who have been left with disabilities that will last their entire lifetime, and of course those who have lost both parents. I mean, it truly is devastating when we look at the stats.
Absolutely. I mean, the scale of destruction of schools, of hospitals, of homes is overwhelming. 1 in 50 of Gaza's children has been killed in the last 2 years. And when we think about the horrific lasting impact on children, I think you can get a sense of that and track it through what they're telling our teams. One of the things that our teams do is we ask children, what would give you a sense of safety? Who would be in your safe place? And one of our teams told me about a boy that they were supporting, whose uncle had been killed in an airstrike. And he simply said, when they asked them that there would never, never, never be a safe space in Gaza ever again, even after the war is over. And so that's why we need to see this become a definitive and lasting ceasefire. And we need to see a surge of sustained aid across the Strip in order to make sure that that sense of safety in the first instance starts to return for children again.
And in terms of dealing with both the physical and the mental trauma for these children, of course, the women, the elderly, but in particular the children that you're working with, how are your teams doing that on the ground?
Well, look, Save the Children's teams are providing emotional support and psychosocial support to children in a range of ways. And one of the really important things that we do is activities with them where we ask them to draw, simply to express themselves, to just be children again, but also to start to process the things that they've been through that no child should ever endure. And, you know, even some of these gentle activities can be a window into the absolute horrors that they've experienced in the last 2 years. When we asked one boy to draw his favourite animal, he drew a giraffe because he said that its long neck would keep him safe from attacks. We've also seen children draw their dreams of being teachers and doctors, but from the midst of the rubble of their bombed out homes. But just to give a sense of what can happen with the right support, our teams are supporting a 12-year-old boy called Amir. Now, his father was killed in an airstrike. His family's home was destroyed, and they are living in a tent right now. In June, he was walking in the street when an airstrike hit. He was hit by it, and he said that he felt the missile strike. His legs were broken, and he was taken to hospital. His mother only really understood what had happened to him when a passerby brought her his shoes that had been left behind after the attack. Now, he's receiving medical care. He's on the road to recovery. The first time I met him, he was in a wheelchair, and his sister brought him to our tent where we were doing these activities. And he sat down on the floor with other children, and he drew what he was feeling that day. And on that day, this 12-year-old boy that has been through so much drew 3 smiley faces, because that's how he was feeling. And they were 2 for his sisters and 1 for himself. Now, that is a sign of what can happen with the right support, but we know that right now there are hundreds of thousands of children that need this kind of care, that need this kind of support to recover. And it's absolutely vital that Save the Children and others in Gaza can scale up to reach them, because irreparable harm has been done, and we absolutely need to start helping children recover as best we can.
Dan, we're really grateful for you joining us here on the programme. Thank you so much. That was Dan Stewart from Save the Children UK, and he just spent some time in Gaza. Well, thank you so much for joining us for our full day's coverage on this momentous day. I'm here in Hostages Square in Tel Aviv, where there is a clock that's still going because, of course, the people of Israel are waiting for those who were killed in Gaza, for their bodies to be returned. 4 of those bodies were returned, but of course there are 24 others. And as you saw there, the Palestinian people are also sleeping with some respite tonight. Good night.